I'm going out, I gotta go. I'll bang a rang on the radio. So turn it up, I'm telling you. I think I'm ready for something new. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza. Hey, hello, it's nice to meet ya. Hey, come in and have a slice of pizza.
I'm Noelle, and today I'm joined by Brendan from Wheatus. He's the lead vocalist, guitarist, and the only remaining founding member of Wheatus, correct?
Correct, yes.
That's cool. So it's so nice to
Noelle.
meet you. Yeah. So first, I just want to say I think it's cool that my name is in your song, Teenage Dirtbag. I was wondering, how did you decide on that name in particular? Like, did it just come to you, or did you choose it for a certain reason?
Well, it's perfect. It's a perfect vowel consonant motion.
Okay.
And for that spot in the verse. And I didn't personally know somebody called Noelle when I was younger, but the name was somebody was named that in my brother's class.
Okay.
I never knew that person.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my brother did either. So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I just wondered that.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to talk a little about the origin of that song. So I didn't know this until recently when I was watching the video about the story behind Teenage Dirtbag, but it actually had to do with like the satanic panic of the 80s and like the murder that took place in your hometown. And, people thinking that heavy metal was the cause of that. And I honestly never would have guessed that because the song sounds kind of lighthearted and you wouldn't think that it was inspired by such a dark thing. But how did you decide to make the song about that topic?
Well, Teenage Dirtbag is not about the murder that happened, I've been asked for so many years, like, what is a dirtbag? What is a dirtbag? And
Yeah.
around 2008, I started really thinking about or it was more like 2006, 2007. I was like, what are they asking me? Like, what does this mean? And I was like, well, what did it mean? When I first learned that word, and it was maybe 1982, 83. When I was first starting to like hang out and get pizza downtown and whatever else.
Yeah.
That term was pretty dark and scary, and then it became much darker and much scarier in my little village that I grew up in. So it was like I had to start talking about it honestly if I was going to keep getting the question and the song was going to keep going on and doing its thing, because it felt sort of like I had run out of answers that were as fun as the song is.
Yeah.
So I also I know that it was bleeped out by the record label early on, but the whole thing about bringing a gun to school and all that stuff, that wasn't inspired by school shootings in the 90s. That was inspired by my actual, I remember kids having their dad's gun and playing with it outside and stuff and showing it off or whatever. And I felt that danger as a kid and kind of assumed that was how it was everywhere. And when I got out into the world and discovered that it isn't, I started to feel like, I should probably talk to somebody about these things.
Yeah.
So I entered therapy in 2010 and talk about a lot of stuff. But basically, the short story is that the hometown I grew up in was pretty violent, and lots of fist fighting. Kids had knives, lots of drugs. Occasional gun.
That's pretty scary, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of was, and I there's no version of me being the songwriter for this song where I don't eventually just admit maybe that what a dirtbag was back then was pretty sinister, or was considered by authorities to be pretty sinister. it was this weird dichotomy where I was like kind of starting to identify as a dirtbag, like musically and
Hmm.
fashion wise, I guess. And then,
Yeah.
if you can call it that, dirtbag
Yeah.
in the 80s
Dirtbag style.
wasn't really fashion,
Yeah.
and then when the murder happened, it was like, we had this choice to make. Are you going to become like a prep and stay away from all that, or are you going to embrace that? And I was kind of fully and completely like, no, I love AC/DC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and went full into that world for my own identity. So it was like, it was like a dangerous decision to make that I felt.
Hmm.
But really, the reason I just did that is because I sensed the hypocrisy of the adults around the subject of the
Right.
murder and all that. So yeah, that's it. Really, I mean,
Yeah. Cool. So you've said that people often lump Teenage Dirtbag in with pop punk, but you don't really think of it that way. And that when you were starting out, you like went on tour with some other bands that didn't really fit your aesthetic or sound. So how has that affected the band, and how have you kind of like dealt with that?
well, we did a lot of touring in the States that what would be considered unsuccessful, meaning that like there was like kids up in the front row like this to us, like
Yeah.
with their backs to us, giving the finger, and I that stopped when we toured with Eve Six, but that was only about a month worth of touring, and then we were
Hmm.
when we were gone, we were off tour with them, and we eventually kind of blew up overseas in its own way. Like it wasn't pushed by a label anymore. It was kind of forgotten
Yeah.
about by the American label, and so it would become this sort of song that nobody was claiming, and then it kind of did its own thing and blew up. And you know when that happened, it was pop punk was this catchphrase of like three-piece, like trio bands like Green Day, and I love Green Day and I love Blink-182, but I
Yeah.
would be lying if I said that that's where my musical influences came from, because it didn't really. I
Hmm.
was much more into hip hop and AC/DC and Metallica and that kind of stuff growing up, and a little bit of new wave. But
Okay.
I didn't discover Erasure and Depeche Mode. I didn't discover pop punk or punk like the Buzzcocks and Crass and Pixies and all that stuff.
Hmm.
I didn't really come across that until way later. And the Ramones were always around because they were a New York band, but I always
Yeah.
kind of considered them to be like a power pop band and
Oh,
not a
okay.
punk band per se. I still feel like the Ramones are more of a rock and roll band and less of a
Yeah.
punk band.
They're a little bit different.
Yeah, they're not really punk, definitely. But I think that I stayed away from all that, and kind of after the '80s got into the sort of post-punk hardcore stuff, like
Okay.
Helmet and Quicksand, and
Hmm.
those sorts of bands, bands that would like predate Deftones, like
Yeah.
that, like the bands that influenced the Deftones. That was the kind of stuff
Hmm.
that I was more drawn to. Fugazi was one of them.
Yeah.
And so like the whole pop punk thing kind of missed me, and I always felt
Hmm.
like Teenage Dirtbag doesn't really fit into that. It's like it's slower, it has more of a hip hop influenced beat. The
Yeah.
acoustic guitars are kind of more like a Paul Simon or like a James Taylor song,
Hmm.
and then there's like this. The guitars are not pop punk guitars; are more like metal or shreddy kind
Yeah.
of guitars. So I yeah, it was. I didn't. I'm not mad about it, but it's just not true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I think that song is a little different than pop punk. Like I can see how people would kind of think of it that way, but um yeah, there's some different things going on in that song, which I think makes it like unique and cool.
yeah. Thanks. There
So,
was also
yeah.
something a little bit like there was a little bit of resentment happening at the label at the time because they kept trying to turn
Mhm.
us into a three-piece,
Oh, okay.
and we were a four-piece. Like my co-producer was Phil Jimenez, as the percussion player in the band, and he was our
Yeah.
multi-instrumentalist, and he played the samples and everything. And they were constantly trying to get me to fire him, and I was like, he's my fucking partner. Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? We made this music together. Like, how, you know,
Yeah, that's
and it
terrible.
well, it was based in that aesthetic, that sort of pop punk
Yeah.
3-piece band aesthetic. So, you know, whatever. But
Yeah.
it was never true. So,
Right. So I heard your band name comes from a nickname that your dad gave you and your siblings. So can you talk about how that came about?
yeah. Well, going back to when we were infants, he would call us Wheatus, and it was the devolved version of the word little. And he would like
Yeah.
baby talk us like little Wheatus Wheatus. That's how it kind of evolved. You know how
Yeah.
like nicknames evolve. So that was how that
Right.
happened. And when it was time to name the band, it felt right to have something that that was like didn't mean anything, like
Yeah.
yeah, a nonsense word, and I felt like that
Okay.
was like fit the bill. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Uh, so both your brother and sister are in the band with you, right?
My brother and sister were in the band. My
Okay.
brother was in the band until from the beginning until 2006 or 2005, and my sister was in the band on and off till 2010 or so.
Okay.
Um, but they've long since gone and done other things outside of music.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Because I don't know if I could be in a band with my brother and sister. Like, we would probably be fighting all the time. So I was wondering if you like fought with them or anything, or if you like got along pretty well.
I mean, no, nothing out of the ordinary in terms of like sibling arguments. You know, sibling fights can blow up real fast because you know each
Yeah.
other so well, and you know you can see each other's bullshit from like a million miles away. So
Yeah.
it's kind of tough, but it was more of an asset than a hindrance. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in one of your earlier bands that you were in called Hope Factory, you like opened for Joan Jett, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like,
It
what
was
was that
super
like?
cool. She was so nice to us that it was
Yeah.
a real solid lesson in like, you know, how to treat like other people, other musicians, other professionals, or people aspiring to be professionals. Because we were definitely amateurs when she took us out, but she just was super badass and like bold and sort of confident, and she didn't give a fuck. And it was like this view of like, and keep in mind this is pre-internet, this is like 96, you know.
Hmm.
So it always felt like that was the first look at at the real thing that I ever got up close, and it was
Yeah.
so valuable. It was so valuable. It was just like really important.
Yeah.
And we only did a few weeks with her on the East Coast, and we were managed by her manager, and
Hmm.
who was also really nice to us. But it was like the first like broke the yoke. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
like our first run. So yeah, I can't really place it. It's like the most valuable thing that I've ever done. You know, so in some ways, you know, it's like
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's so cool. So from there, how did Wheatus get started? Like, how did you meet your other bandmates and decide to start playing music together?
well, I met my brother a long time ago, but
Yeah. Well, other than him.
but the Phil Jimenez, who's definitely the most pivotal founding member of the band, or first member of the band, I should say, was a friend of mine from another band that we were in, and we had played a few shows together, and we really hit it off. I liked playing with Phil a lot. We were in this band with this singer songwriter, this girl who wrote songs and fronted the band called Jeanette, and the band was called Moxie, and this
Okay.
was like 92, 93. Not a band you
Hmm.
will have heard. We never, I don't think we ever finished any of the recordings, but
Hmm.
you know, when that band broke up, I lost track of Phil for about a year and a half, and then bumped into him when I had just finished Teenage Dirtbag. I finished writing it, and I was in a Guitar Center on Long Island, and I said to him, "Hey, let me play you this song that I'm working on. I want to find a co-producer to work on it with me." And
Mhm.
I played him Teenage Dirtbag, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we started working together right there, and that was the beginning of recording the first album. Um, and of course, his friend Mike McCabe came on much later when Rich was out of the band. And Rich was a guy I was in a band with, this little hardcore band called Bandersnatch when I was like 19.
Okay.
Um, and that was my first like CBGB's gig, was with Rich
Yeah.
in Bandersnatch. And
That's so cool.
it was like, everyone was in other bands, though. You have to understand, like in New
Yeah.
York there was a pretty solid hustle of people who wanted to be musicians. It was like,
Yeah.
you're in a couple bands, you're trying everything.
Yeah.
And so Rich was in another band, and Phil was in another band, and even my brother was in a band at college. And as the Wheatus thing began to snowball, it drew everybody closer away from their other projects, and that was kind of how the first band formed.
Yeah.
And then when we went on tour, it was this unit that had been together. Basically, the three of us, myself, Phil, and my brother, had been together making the record for about 2-3 years.
Hmm.
And then Mike came on, and Mike was such a good bass player that he kind of like picked up where we needed him to, and just, was capable of doing everything.
Yeah.
So it worked. We were lucky that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were originally going to do something in the medical field, right?
That's funny. When I was in high school, I was on like a conveyor belt I didn't understand,
Yeah.
sort of college preparatory conveyor belt. And it was like,
Yeah.
I went into a Jesuit university as declaring a pre-med major, which was the dumbest thing anyone's ever done. And I did 2 years of pre-med, and then
Yeah.
I failed organic chemistry.
Yeah.
And I had really been trying, so I didn't understand how I failed it. And I came to
Mhm.
find out that I have a wicked reading disability, and
Oh.
the long peptide chain equations in organic chem are too wide for me to read all the way through. So I was
Okay.
like, it was really like
That's
organic chemistry
interesting.
uniquely exposed my like deficit. And I
Yeah.
had always had it, and it had always taken me much longer to read than normal people, but I was just like, had worked to overcome it, not knowing that there was anything wrong.
Yeah.
And then got to college and found out that there was something wrong. So I had so many science credits by that point that I switched over to psych and history. So I have a double major in psych and history. So
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah.
Um,
I didn't use any of it. I love
Yeah.
history. It's
yeah, you
fascinating.
didn't. But yeah, that's cool though. I didn't know that. But yeah, so do you have any hobbies outside of making music?
Yeah, BMX.
Okay.
I love BMXing. I love building BMX tracks in the woods and hitting jumps and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that's fun.
That's
It
super
sounds
fun.
it sounds dangerous, but
I mean, I'm 49, so I have to be a little bit more careful than I used to
Right.
be. But I love it, and it's totally awesome. And aside from that, my partner Gabrielle and I, who's also in Wheatus, we enjoy gardening together. We
Okay.
have a vegetable garden in the summertime that we work on
Nice.
starting in March. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to abandon it for tour, and we come back and there's like a zucchini that's this big that
Yeah,
no
I
one's
I saw the picture you posted on Instagram of your giant zucchini.
eaten. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So and I also love birds. I feed birds a lot, as much as I can. I'm constantly ordering
Yeah.
bird seed and putting it out.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So early on in the band, you were the tour manager. So how is it different now? Is it like easier that you don't have that responsibility of the tour manager, or?
Yeah. So period of me tour managing the band was like 2005 to 2012. And
Mhm.
those sort of 7 years were really tough. That is not a good idea, to tour manage a band that goes on a tour bus and be the lead singer and all that.
Yeah, I can
rest of it.
imagine.
It was extremely stressful, but it was born of necessity. We didn't have the money to hire somebody properly, and I was a little played out on the personalities we'd come across who had done that for us in the past.
Hmm.
You know, in 2012, I met a guy named Mike Doyle, who was the first person I ever trusted with the job, and he was really amazing at that.
Hmm.
And he worked with us until 2017. Unfortunately, he had a stroke,
Oh no.
and he's recovering, but he's not on the road yet. And
Yeah.
as soon as he's able, we're gonna take him out.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky to have a couple of excellent tour managers. Scully from Texas. She probably won't want me to use her real name. And Shannon Soderlund, who's also a musician and singer-songwriter in her own right, but she just tour managed us on this last one. So
Okay.
yeah, it's it's a job you really have to trust somebody in and
Hmm.
hand a lot over to. And
Yeah.
you know, for the first couple of weeks, you're like over their shoulder a little bit, making sure that something doesn't go catastrophically wrong, because boy, can it go wrong and go so
Yeah.
wrong. So but both those people I would trust with my life at this point, you know, Shannon
Yeah.
and Scully. So um
Yeah. Well, it's
yeah,
good that you have them now
yeah,
to
yeah.
kind of handle all that work. So you're contributing to a Kinks tribute album called
Hmm.
Starstruck, and that's coming out December 9th. So how did that project come about?
Yeah. That was this weird God, that was so weird. So we we met Dave Davies through channels, and the same
Hmm.
day we got a email about doing a Kinks compilation, and it was so weird. Like it's like what, they're
Yeah.
two totally different, unrelated corners of the
Right.
universe. So my I'm I have to confess to, like, I'm a little bit late to the Kinks. I remember Lola growing up, but
Yeah.
and
That's a
you
good
really
one.
got me. And yeah, like I remember them. As a kid, I remember them just being there all the time, but I was never like, I was more into AC/DC at that point,
Right.
and uh discovered the Kinks later in life.
Hmm.
And you know, when I got the opportunity to do it, I was like, oh man, like I always know the Kinks songs are pretty complicated and weird, and they're like so
Yeah.
quirky, and like they're difficult to cover for that reason. So I was a little bit
Hmm.
nervous about saying yes.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because our old A&R guy and another person in our business orbit are about 10 years older than me, which is the right age to have gone to see them when they came over here in the States the
Oh,
first time.
okay.
Right. So when they were teenagers, these two people in our lives
Yeah.
had seen them live a bunch and were addicted. So I
Mhm.
got them into the conversation as a consultant kind of
Yeah.
thing. And they gave me a short list of songs that I immediately learned how to play them all. And the
Oh.
only one that really felt like it could also be my own voice was Starstruck.
Hmm.
And that wound up being the name of the compilation. So it's
Okay.
so cool. It's just and you know, met with Dave and had breakfast with him and talked to him about it and everything. He's heard the
Yeah.
version, he loves it. So it's
That's
just like,
awesome.
yeah, it's so awesome. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to it when it comes out. So you guys are playing your first hometown headline show in almost 4 years in January with a couple of the other bands that are going to have songs on this tribute album, like The Fatal Flaw and Todd Morris from the
Yeah.
Offspring.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about getting to headline a hometown show again?
Um, it's fantastic. We got signed there at the Mercury Lounge. That's where like everything started for us. And
Hmm.
you know, Todd and I'm excited about meeting the other guys and you know, other musicians who are in the same endeavor, and just get to know some new people. Because I've never, as much as we've been doing this at the same time, I've never run into the Offspring or anybody from the band. So
Yeah.
um you know, we're really excited about it, and it's going to be like a sort of a family fun night for us a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, do you like playing shows in your hometown more than in other places?
That's a good question. Um I like playing hometown shows, but my favorite place to play in the world is Scotland.
Oh,
And a
okay.
close second is Wales. and a very close third is Australia.
Hmm.
Those three places, I don't know why they're so sort of up for it, for lack of a better term, but it's like
Yeah.
they just won't let you fail. Even if you're
Yeah.
sick and you're having a bad night and whatever, you're pissed off. Those audiences are like, no, man, we're here for you to rock, and you're gonna fucking
Yeah.
rock, or we're gonna kill you. You know, so it's like it always works out. You know,
Yeah.
in those places, and that's one of the reasons I feel great about Scotland and
Yeah.
Wales and Australia.
They
Yeah,
seem like nice places too, like just the environment. I don't know. I've always wanted to go to Australia. It
yeah.
seems warmer than where I am at
Oh, it
least.
most certainly is. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't really have winter as we know it. You know.
Yeah. So what has been you just answered that. Never mind. I was gonna say what's your favorite country to play in?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, besides the Kinks project, are you working on any other music, or do you plan on releasing an album anytime soon?
Yes, so much music. So we're just about, I have 4 more songs to mix on the 20th anniversary edition of our first album, which
Okay.
the first album, when it came out in 2000, had 10 songs on it. This version of it has 20.
Yeah.
And what it is it's like everything's renamed. So it's Teenage Dirtbag 2020, Truffles 2020, Leroy
Yeah.
2020. A lot of them are out already. If you go on Spotify, Teenage Dirtbag 2020 is already up,
Yeah.
streaming. And what we're doing is we're pairing the old songs with each of them gets its other like anti-matter particle, like from the same from a different universe, where like
Yeah.
I kind of see like there's almost like 2 versions of our first record. There's the first record, and then there's all these songs that we never recorded because they sounded too much like they belonged on the first album.
Yeah.
So those tracks are out of the vault and recorded now, and they're brand new. Basically, no one's ever heard them, and we're dropping
Yeah.
them 2 songs at a time. I think there's currently 14 tracks or 16 tracks
Yeah.
total that are up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have, like I said, I have 4 more to mix. So I'm
Cool.
going to do that over the Christmas break and get them finished and get them out, and then we have to make a vinyl edition and the
Yeah.
DSD native edition, and then after that we're gonna record a covers record and our 7th studio album, which has been on hold for a really long
Ooh.
time. Yeah, so there's like in the end by 2025, with all of the reissues and everything and the new albums out,
Mhm.
there's probably going to be about 100 Wheatus songs to stream that are original.
Oh, nice.
And quite a few more that are covers. So I'm pretty excited about the next 2 years.
Yeah. That
but,
is exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah. So, what would you say your favorite Wheatus album is?
Oh man.
Might be a hard question, but
it's probably the Valentine LP.
okay.
That's my favorite collection of songs. But there are a few that I like playing live more than others. Like the London Sun is a really fun one to play live when we get that
Mhm.
one right. That's from Too Soon Monsoon. We always play Lemonade. That's almost always in the set.
Yeah.
That's from the second album. Yeah, that's a kind of a weird question because it has a lot to do with how good are we at that song at this time, right?
Mhm.
So like when we have I think we have somewhere close to like 60 plus tracks that are originals that are out and streaming, and we try to learn them all, which is very challenging.
Yeah.
And when you get them right, when you know them well enough, it's hard to remember how 60 songs go.
Right.
Like just
Yeah, that's
lyrics.
a lot
And,
to
we don't work with
remember.
teleprompters or anything like that, so I have to
Yeah.
know my lyrics. I have to know every
Right.
little chord move.
Yeah.
And but when we feel good about the whole entire catalog, it's always like From Listening to Lightning is really fun to do.
Mhm.
Freedom Song is really fun to do. A Fisherman with a Clock. Anything on Valentine, and like a song like No Happy Ending Tune from Too Soon Monsoon.
Mhm.
That one is really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes all over the place is the real answer.
Yeah. Have you gotten a chance to play any of the new songs live?
Yeah, we've been playing Through, which Joey wrote.
Okay.
Mope, Satan's Orders, People. Yeah, we've been playing a lot. We've been playing
Cool.
a lot of the new stuff. Yeah.
Which has been your favorite of the new songs to play live?
It's got to be Mope, I think. I
Okay.
think Mope feels the best from the batch of new songs.
Yeah.
People's
Cool.
pretty fun too, but I have to feel really good about the vocal because it's
Yeah.
like a really high vocal. So
Right.
sometimes I'm like, ah, you know.
Yeah.
Mope is my favorite, definitely my favorite, and Temporary Song. Mope and Temporary Song, those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I know you have some festival shows lined up and some shows on your current tour. So which upcoming show are you most looking forward to playing?
Oh man. Well, we're finally playing with Dashboard Confessional, and they're
Yeah, I saw
friends
that.
of ours from a long time ago. So we're very excited about being on the same bill with them for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting, and that's coming up at the Odyssey Festival.
Yeah.
But you know, we have a few shows in. We're playing a mall. If you go to wheatus.com/shows, you'll see all this information. But we're playing a mall in New Jersey on January 8th, and then we're playing in Philadelphia on January 13th, and then we're playing New York City on January 14th, and then we're going to take some time off to recuperate and mix. And then we have festival season, I think, starts in May. So we're going to be
Awesome.
rehearsing and getting the rest of this this giant recording finished,
Yeah.
and also there's a movie about us. That's
Yeah, I was going to ask you
yeah.
about that. There's like a
Right.
documentary in the works about you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Do you know when it's going to be released yet?
I don't yet. You know, we're just in the finishing stages of it. I can't say that it's a happy story, but,
Yeah.
but it's an honest one to some degree. You'll get to
Mhm.
see me pretty stressed out and you know, kind of trying to deal with being, like we said before, the tour manager and the lead singer at the same time. It's really
Mhm.
stressful and not a lot of money for us at that time. They came on board to start filming in the worst tour that we ever did. So it's
Yeah.
it's honest and maybe not happy, but it's like it's a real period that we went through, even though we're kind of past that period now. Part of what's
Yeah.
being discussed, in fact, is that like we're so far out of that rut at this point. It's like, how do we tell that story honestly and then also be like, but wait, we didn't die, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. We're still
I mean,
here.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Empire Strikes Back, you know?
Okay.
So,
Cool. Well, I'm excited for that. So where can people find the Starstruck Kinks tribute album when it releases?
well, it's on streaming right now. You can check it out there, and I think that the vinyl issues and physical copies are December 9th, I think. But yeah, you can go to iTunes or Spotify and Amazon and check it out.
Cool.
Yeah, it's on Wicked Opossum Records.
Nice.
Yeah.
So are you listening to any bands right now that you would recommend?
I can't stop listening to Phoebe Bridgers.
Okay.
always listen to her. I have been listening to AC/DC again, here and there. Queens of the Stone Age. I was catching up on some of their records that I didn't know about,
Yeah.
or hadn't completely listened to all the way through.
Yeah.
I've been sort of like listening to my friend Fat Tony a lot. He
Yeah.
just toured with us, and his records are amazing. I
Cool.
throw him on when I'm kind of working and just like getting a vibe.
Yeah.
It's just too many because, like, you know, Spotify like rabbit holes you like right
Right.
down. It's there's so many things I've
Yeah.
listened to and I like that I'm like, what was the name of that band again? Oh my god, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's well, I think we do have a Spotify playlist that reflects some of these rabbit holes, so you can check it
Mhm.
out. But,
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And then is there anything else you'd like to plug or mention before we go?
Oh boy. No, just come to Wheatus.com or Twitter /Wheatus, or Instagram is Wheatus Official. TikTok is Wheatus Official, and it's all us. We don't have a manager. We don't have a social media person.
Mhm.
It's band members doing it. So
Yeah, I like that when
yeah,
bands just
yeah.
do it themselves.
Yeah, we're a little clumsy sometimes because we're old, or at least I am. But
Yeah.
but it's still kind of fun, and we try to keep up with it and respond to people for real. So
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it. And it was so nice meeting you.
Thanks, Noelle. Same. It was nice talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, hello, it's nice to